It's a little bit different to the things we talked about before, but nevertheless, it's very, very important to cover. So more importantly, we'll be talking specifically about the iSICK brand. Now, why should we even bother being brand aligned? The iSICK brand reflects how people think and feel about iSICK. Our brand is mostly shaped by what we do, what we say, and the image we portray. We live our brand through the iSICK way, which is something that Kuna covered before. We always hear people say things like, you shouldn't change the logo, or you need to be more brand aligned. But why? Why do we need to be brand aligned? Now, you're about to see some examples of poor branding. And though these are all visual and they are all to do with how brands are portrayed visually, it's only a metaphor. It's important to remember that it can also be affected by what people say and what they do in respect to their brand. So this is FedEx and UPS, LG, Google, KFC, Nike, and Chanel. Branding's not just about the design, right? It's also about everything else. So imagine if the employees at KFC didn't know what Wicked Wings were when a customer asked for them, or if the staff at Chanel wore t-shirts like this when they were working. So you've seen some negative examples of poor branding. Now, what should a well-portrayed brand look like? A well-portrayed brand can turn a coffee into a moment of experience, getting dressed into fashion, getting around into status, communication into a lifestyle, and exchange into leadership. So I hope you're starting to get the gist of the importance of branding by now. I'm going to go back to something that I said a bit earlier, that the iSICK brand reflects how people think and feel about iSICK. Our brand is mostly shaped by what we do, what we say, and the image that we portray. We can live our brand through the iSICK way. But how exactly do we do this? Just a little bit of background. The world around us is changing at an unprecedented speed, pushed by technological and social innovation. So that means that we're becoming more global and more digital by the day. One main consequence of these changes is that iSICK is completely transparent. Our opportunities, policies, the entire brand experience will be accessible to virtually strangers. This requires us to be globally aligned in a way that we communicate to the organization at any level. So this is in both physical and virtual channels. The first thing I'm going to talk about is the vocabulary. So the way that we communicate the organization is a very critical factor to keep in consideration. Simple tweaks in a few words could dramatically change the way that iSICK is perceived outside. Let's have a look at the main guidelines. Our product. As much as we are sure that owning a smartwatch or buying a piece of cake can definitely improve our living, we believe that an iSICK experience is a little something more than just a product. Therefore, some words that you shouldn't use to describe an iSICK experience is the word product, a subproduct, or even an exchange. Instead, we should be using words such as program, experience, or opportunity. So, for instance, you wouldn't say the outgoing Global Volunteer product. Instead, you would say the Global Volunteer program. Countries and territories. Now, this is a slightly sensitive topic, so please do pay attention to this when you're creating Facebook posts or when you're just talking to people. Because right now, iSICK is present in 125 countries and territories, not just countries. And this is a very, very sensitive topic worldwide, so it's important to take into consideration the importance of mentioning also territories. On top of that, never use iSICK Auckland or iSICK New Zealand or iSICK Taiwan. Instead, the correct way should be saying iSICK in New Zealand, iSICK in Auckland, or iSICK in Taiwan, because iSICK is not a separate organization that's in different countries Instead, it's a global organization which is present in different countries. I mean, these are very, very small details, but it's very important to remember. Okay, the next thing is wording. So we should describe the activities that we do with the intention for our partner, which is our customers, to understand what we mean. Sometimes this can mean using words that are commonly used or understood by others. So try not to use buzzwords, for instance saying ISIC is lit or dope or I don't know. Try to avoid using internal slang. A lot of people make jokes about ISIC being a cult, and I mean that's absolutely fine within the LC, but externally we try to stay away from that. Try to avoid using abbreviations, because when you start using abbreviations, it can really lose the meaning of what you're trying to say. People start to lose focus or attention simply because they don't know what you're talking about. Instead, try to use easily understandable wording, try to be simple, and also try to be clear with what you're trying to say. Now, you yourself are a brand ambassador, and with all this being said, previously, you are actually the most important part of the equation. You represent this brand, and you are essentially the brand. Hence, it's extremely important that you are a good brand ambassador. So don't be rude at stores, try not to be unprofessional, don't ignore customers, and don't brush people off simply because you don't know the information. However, do be approachable, try to make an effort, be as helpful as you possibly can, and try to be knowledgeable. With that being said, this covers most of what we want to cover today regarding brand. Now, the other part of this is the more visual side of our brand and different regulations towards how we can engage with the external environment, as in the university. I'm sure most of you already know this information, so I've kind of turned it into a little bit of a mini quiz. I'll obviously give you answers at the end of every question, but just to test your knowledge. So, which areas around uni can we chalk? So the areas in uni where we can chalk is pretty much everywhere except for in front of OGGB and along the entire Grafton Road. So those areas are off bounds. Some of the best areas to chalk though are outside IC0 or in front of the library or behind the quad, which is right next to the Relax Cafe along Princess Street. Where around uni can we put up posters? Again, the answer to this is pretty much everywhere. Anywhere that you can see a notice board, you are allowed to put up posters. The only places would be the engineering faculty, where you do have to ask permission. Anywhere else is absolutely fine. What is the ratio for the long blue ISIC logo to white space? So if you don't know what I'm talking about the long ISIC logo, which is used at the bottom of documents, and the ratio for how much space should be left at the end of that logo. So the ratio should be 80-20, which means the logo takes up 80% of the space and 20% of the space is white. Is it okay for the logo to have a transparent background? And the answer to this is of course no, because the background color of our ISIC logo is part of the design. So if it's a blue logo, the white is part of the design, and if it's a white logo, the blue is, and same goes for black and white. When are we supposed to use the long ISIC logo and vice versa, the short ISIC logo? So the long ISIC logo is meant to be used on any kind of documentation, any formal documents, contracts, things like that. And the short ISIC logo can pretty much be used anywhere, namely social media, posts, posters, etc. The next question is, which blue logo is correct? So, I'm sure most of you know, but the darker blue ISIC logo, which is the one on the left, was pretty much deleted at the start of last year. So the only blue logo that we legally are supposed to use is the ISIC blue logo, which is on the right hand side. Now, when do we use the following logo? So this logo says powered by AIESEC. So this logo is really used at any time when we are promoting or facilitating a sub-program of AIESEC which has its own brand. So an example of this would be Y2B, Youth to Business Forum, which obviously has its own brand, but it is still a program which is facilitated by AIESEC. Things like Youth Speak Forum would also use this logo. So that's all of the quiz questions that I have for you today. I hope you learned something from this. If not, I hope it was a really, really good refresher. I hope you guys can all go out there during O Week and be great brand ambassadors. But that's all from me. Remember to do well in the quiz. Okay, bye.